The rising tide, Christian persecution in the US, China, Sub-Saharan Africa, and the Middle East. 2015-2024 Christian persecution is no longer just an issue in authoritarian regimes, it is rising in democratic nations as well. While the world watches in silence, hostility toward Christians grows in both the East and the West. This presentation exposes the alarming trends of increasing Christian persecution in China, the United States, Sub-Saharan Africa, and the Middle East, revealing a stark reality that demands attention. Introduction. Throughout history, Christianity has endured trials. Empires have risen and fallen, but faith has remained. Today, we face a new and evolving threat. In some nations, persecution is driven by oppressive regimes that seek to eradicate Christian influence. In others, it takes the form of societal hostility, legal bias, and cultural suppression. This analysis uncovers the growing challenges facing Christians worldwide between 2015 and 2024, showing a dramatic shift toward increased opposition to religious freedoms. Christian persecution in China. 2015 to 2024 In China, the government enforces strict control over religious expression. The Communist Party has tightened its grip on Christianity through state-approved doctrine, church demolitions, and mass arrests of pastors and believers. The government's sinicization policy has transformed Christianity from a personal faith into a tool for state loyalty. Online sermons are censored, underground churches are raided, and worship outside government-sanctioned institutions is forbidden. Key statistics: over 600 churches demolished in the last decade. 1,200 Christian leaders arrested in 2024 alone. Conversion efforts are banned, and digital surveillance tracks Christian activities. COVID-19 restrictions were weaponized to further limit religious gatherings. What began as state monitoring has become full-scale suppression. The question remains, how far will it go? Christian persecution in the United States. 2016-2024 In America, the First Amendment guarantees freedom of religion. Yet, over the last decade, Christians have faced increasing hostility not from an authoritarian government, but from a culture that sees faith as a threat to progressive ideology. Hate crimes, legal battles, and social censorship are on the rise. Key statistics: hate crimes against Christians have increased 133% under the Biden administration. Church closures surged, particularly during the pandemic, while other establishments remained open. Pro-life activists and street preachers have been arrested for standing by their beliefs. Although the persecution in America is not as overt as in China, the consequences are still alarming. If legal battles and cultural hostility continue unchecked, will religious liberty remain secure? Christian persecution in Sub-Saharan Africa. 2015-2024 While Western nations struggle with legal and cultural battles, Christians in Sub-Saharan Africa face brutal violence, massacres, and destruction. Nigeria is at the heart of this crisis, as Islamic extremists continue to launch coordinated attacks on Christian villages. Key statistics: over 4,200 Christians were murdered in 2024 alone. Boko Haram and Fulani militants have destroyed over 400 churches. Thousands of women and children have been abducted and forced into conversion or slavery. Despite the growing crisis, the international community largely ignores the plight of African Christians. Their cries for help echo in silence. Christian persecution in the Middle East. 2015-2024 The birthplace of Christianity is now witnessing its near eradication. Governments in the Middle East have intensified crackdowns on Christians, implementing harsh religious laws and forcing believers to flee their homelands. Key statistics: over 1.3 million Christians have been displaced in the Middle East since 2015. In Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt, conversion to Christianity is punishable by imprisonment or death. In Iraq and Syria, the Christian population has plummeted by over 90%. What was once a vibrant Christian heritage has been systematically erased. Churches are burned, believers are imprisoned, and entire communities are forced into exile. What this means for the future as Christian persecution intensifies globally, the consequences are undeniable. If these trends continue, will Christianity face restrictions in the West just as it does in authoritarian regimes? What we are seeing today, one legal battles, more Christian organizations face lawsuits for standing by biblical values. 2. Media social bias, Christianity is increasingly portrayed as a threat, rather than a source of hope. 3. Government restrictions, the next crisis, whether a pandemic, war, or economic collapse, could be used to justify further control over religious expression. For normalization of bias, the increasing hostility toward Christian values is setting a dangerous precedent. If this trend continues, will the West adopt the same restrictions on Christianity that we see in China today? Conclusion. Call to action. We have new hope after the installation of President Trump, as his administration has taken steps to protect religious liberty and defend Christian values. However, on the grassroots level, bias against Christianity continues, driven by cultural, legal, and media influences that remain hostile to faith-based perspectives. While policies may shift at the federal level, the battle for religious freedom must continue at every level of society. Hate crimes, legal challenges, and social pressures against Christians are still rising, and vigilance is required to prevent further erosion of religious rights. Call to action, defend religious liberty in every sphere: legal, political, and cultural. Raise awareness. Speak out against Christian persecution worldwide. Support persecuted Christians in Africa and the Middle East through advocacy and aid. Pray and take action, because faith without works is dead. If the world remains silent, the persecution of Christians will only grow stronger. What we tolerate today determines the freedoms of tomorrow. The basis for this slideshow is the book Persecuting the Modern Christian: Christianity Under Siege. The truth: they don't want you to hear. Christianity is under attack, from legal battles to cultural suppression. Real stories, real persecution, exposing the growing hostility and the use of propaganda to encourage non-tolerance toward believers. Arm yourself with knowledge, faith, and courage to stand firm in today's world. Stand. Speak. Defend the faith. Available on Amazon KDP. Get your copy today.